Our topic today is Business and Finance Transformation, Competencies for the 21st Century. The first topic that we're going to be talking about is the imperative for finance transformation. This will be a discussion of why it's absolutely critical for us to change the way that we make financial decisions within our organizations. The next topic that we'll talk about is the ValueSoft transformation proposition. After that, we're going to do a very brief tour of the phases of process transformation. This will give you actually an opportunity to see some of our products that we've developed here at ValueSoft. This decade has brought enormous changes, especially in the areas of technology advances that impact the way we must do business, and especially in the way the financial functions need to be performed in organizations now and into the future. There have been dramatic increases in the spontaneity of information access and distribution, and these have created enormous pressures on organizations to deliver value at unprecedented levels and rates. Frankly, the 5-year strategic plan is a thing of the past. So let's take a look at some of the challenges that organizations are dealing with these days. First, determining how to take advantage of the increasing volume of data about customers, business, partners, and competitors, and determining how to apply high-value analytics to mine this explosive volume of undifferentiated data is becoming a real challenge for organizations. Determining the best way to maintain competitive base costs in a socioeconomic environment where financial volatility is the new norm is also a challenge. Maintaining current customers and gaining new customers through brand loyalty and brand recognition in a world where global competition and social media favor the new and the different rather than the tried and the true is also a challenge. And finally, in order to respond to all of these challenges, how do organizations determine how to create end-to-end business processes with full visibility to operations of their organizations available in real time? Here at ValueSoft, we believe that it's going to be extremely difficult to meet these challenges and thrive in this reality without adopting a culture of continuous improvement, adaptability, and operational excellence. We believe that the very best companies that are going to be the ones that will succeed and thrive into the future through adopting formal structures and frameworks for transformation. And this is what we're going to talk about today and show you one of the ways to do this. We would like to present to you right now the ValueSoft transformation proposition. We feel very proud of this approach and we're eager to share it with you. Here at ValueSoft, we believe that the single most important competency for your organization or any organization that wants to survive and thrive into the future is to have real-time visibility into your core financial processes and to be able to make the right improvements at the right time to your core financial processes. These 3 processes, order to cash, procure to pay, and record to report, are at the heart of financial transformation. Now, as we look at these core financial processes, we believe that transformation requires attaining visibility and clarity around a set of key transformational questions. The first question: do we know what it is important for our organization to do well? Where do we need to be excellent? Do we know what our core competencies are and how effective we are at performing them? Do we have enough visibility into these processes to honestly answer this question in the first place? Next, how effective are we in these core competency areas compared to how we want to be or feel that we should be operating? And do we know actually what excellence is? Do we know what the gold standard is? Can we answer this question? This means that we also need to know how the execution of our core competencies stack up against our competitors and against similar organizations in our demographics. We need to know the best practice standards that we aspire to and how we are compared to those standards. And if there's indeed a difference between what we do, what we want to do, what we feel we should be doing, and how our competitors are doing, how do we go about closing these gaps? Where do we start? Which gaps are most important to close first? And then finally, in our efforts to close the gaps between what we want and where we are right now, how do we know if we've actually indeed closed those gaps compared to the competencies of our competitors and comparable organizations? And what else do we need to fully realize the value we have aimed for? Here at ValueSoft, we believe that our state-of-the-art analytics and tools can be an invaluable aid to help you answer these questions for your organization and to move forward from where you are to become a truly transformative organization. Here at ValueSoft, we've developed a 4-phase process transformation. The first phase, the discovery phase, consists of identifying what it is that your organization does that is important to you and finding out how well you do it compared to best practices for your industry and demographics. The second phase, the gap assessment or blueprint phase, consists of comparing how well you do at best practices to how well comparable companies do at these best practices. It also consists of identifying and prioritizing the gaps that your organization needs to close and prioritizing them against their strategic importance for your organization. The third phase, the realization and execution phase, is all about selecting strategic improvement processes that you want to implement, developing the business case, assigning improvement metrics, and then implementing those projects. And finally, the post-implementation monitoring phase consists of evaluating how well you've done with these improvement processes, and then, as needed, making corrective actions to reach the full potential of what it is that you wish to achieve. Let's take a look at the first phase, the discovery phase. Now remember that we talked about transformation being doing business in a different way, taking advantage of 21st century technologies and methods in order to make better financial decisions. We're going to see a great deal of this evidence as we talk about the discovery phase. Now remember, discovery is all about finding out what you should be doing well and how you are doing it. Now, the traditional way of approaching this is to use your own resources or hiring a high-paid consulting company to go out and research comparable industries and demographics and bring back anecdotal and actual information about things that they do well. This might consist of a consulting project of maybe 2 or 3 people for 2 or 3 months and a report that comes back to you that compares what you do to what other organizations do. Here at ValueSoft, though, we would like to present you with an alternate option which we believe is going to be far, far more attractive. Let's look at how we approach the discovery phase if we're using ValueSoft's analytic tools and database. ValueSoft's analytic tools and database, as we'll demonstrate, has over 150 best practice scenarios to compare how your organization's finance practices compared to those of the best companies in the world. Now, this is actually a screenshot from our application. We're going to right now show you an example from a demo company that we've loaded into the application. The first thing that you're going to be doing is spending a few minutes entering a few pieces of information about your organization. After you do that, then you're going to access the process diagnostic functions within ValueSoft. You will need to add some simple information such as identifying the critical year that you want to look at. By the way, just as a teaser, ValueSoft functionality includes trend analysis. This application will take seconds, not the 2 to 3 months that a consulting company can take. With a click of the button, we're going to have a list. Right now, we're going to focus on the order to cash functional area. ValueSoft will bring up for you a list of all of the scenario descriptions for the base year that you've selected that are associated with the order to cash process. And remember, we have 150 business processes scenarios that are included in our application. What ValueSoft has done right now is to bring up a list of the ones that are associated with the order to cash process. When you first come into the software, you are going to see actually that the far right-hand columns, relevancy, current adoption, and target adoption, will actually be blank. These are the ones that you will need to fill in for each one of these processes that are associated with best practices for order to cash. The first column that you're going to fill in is relevancy. This describes how important this particular best practice is for your company. Again, every company is different, so you will need to determine for your company how important this is. The second thing that you're going to look at is your current adoption level. This is going to be your assessment of how well you actually do this particular best practice within your organization. Finally, the third column, target adoption, this is going to be your target. This is going to be whether you want this to be a best of class or simply good enough, let's say, in order to get by within your organization. You are going to fill in these columns for each one of the scenario descriptions. I cannot emphasize it enough. Be honest. This is your own view of your organization. As honest as you can be about this, the better your results are going to be. Essentially, you're going through a process of entering into your instance of ValueSoft software all of the information about your organization that's going to be used for all of the analysis that occurs in all the reports and graphs that you'll see in the next couple of slides. Now, I need to pause a minute because I'm assuming that there's some questions in the back of everyone's mind. First, let's be absolutely assured that your information is totally confidential and secured within our software. We've taken great measures to isolate your information and to keep it safe. Your information is secure within our applications. Second, you might be looking at this and you might be asking yourself the question, how do I know what my level of competence is? I really don't know how well we are performing compared to the highest levels of adoption. We basically don't know what excellence looks like in one of these business scenarios. If this is the case, ValueSoft does offer to organizations our world-class ValueSoft consultants who can help you fill in this report and to make an objective determinacy of your organization's competency. Again, filling this out correctly is the basis for all of the analysis that occurs. So it's really important to be honest about the level of competency of your organization and also to really reflect on how important each one of these best practices is for your organization. These are all points to keep in mind as we go and look at what this very simple process can result in as far as information that will help you select what it is that you need to do to improve your organization. The next phase is the gap assessment and blueprinting phase. This is where you're going to be comparing the level of process maturity of your organization to that of other organizations. In this next phase, again, we have two choices. First, we can take the traditional, dare I say, 20th century approach and either use our own organizational resources or hire a consulting company to go out and do this comparison for us, and in 2 or 3 months bring back some results. The second option, and again, we consider this to be far more effective, we can use ValueSoft's analytic tools to, in literally a matter of minutes, generate reports based on the information we have just entered and on the ValueSoft database of 150 best practices. Let's take a look and see actually what this looks like. After we have entered all of the information in the discovery phase, literally, we click one button and we can get this benchmark report. This is the process adoption maturity ranking. Now, let's take a look at this. Remember, we're focusing right now on order to cash. Now, if you were doing this actually in real time, you would be looking at all of the finance processes and not just order to cash. But we want to focus just for today on order to cash. You can see in the middle of the graph the 3 bars that are associated with order to cash. The leftmost bar is the one that indicates the level of adoption of order to cash best practices for the top 20% of companies. Now, this is compared to all of the companies in our database, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. The rightmost bar indicates the level of adoption for 70%, which is actually about 1 sigma of the very best companies in the world. So if we look at 70% of the companies that are in our database are operating at a 0.62 level of adoption. However, take a look at that very small bar right in the middle, that 3rd bar, the light violet bar. Based on the entries that you did during the discovery phase, this indicates your organization's level of process maturity. Clearly, we can see that as we look at this graph that we have a great deal of work to do. Even if we're only going to catch up with the 70% of organizations, we still have a huge amount to do. Now, one thing about how this ranking occurs, in the standard version of the software, your organization is compared to all of the other organizations in our database. However, with the premium version of the software, you will actually have demographic segmenting. So you'll be able to filter based on your company and matching it to similar companies. This is also an opportunity to talk to you about the option that you have to actually go into our application, into our site. We would love you to go in there and actually enter information about your organization so that we can add your company to the list of other companies that we can compare to. This allows us actually to get a much more robust analysis based on a larger number of companies. Now, one click, again, one more mouse click, we can take a look at what's called the gap closure dashboard. On the gap closure dashboard, it's going to give you basically a graphic presentation of all of the areas where you have a large gap between the capabilities of your company and those of the best companies in the world. If you look at this, you'll notice that the area where it's clear that the greatest number of opportunities is enterprise risk management. This graph is going to allow you to see the areas where you have the greatest gap between your performance and the very best companies. This is actually going to allow you to now make very specialized decisions about how you are going to invest your improvement dollars. These are going to be the areas where you're going to get the best return on investment. Let's take a look now at enterprise risk management in order to see what are the specific best practice scenarios that we could look at as opportunities for improvement. And again, this isn't a matter of having a consulting company or your own resources spending 2 or 3 months in order to create a report for you like this. This is literally a matter of one click of a mouse button. I think you can also appreciate why it's so incredibly important to get your information accurate during that discovery phase. Again, with that one click of a mouse button, we get a list of high priority areas for process improvement. This report, I think we can see this fairly well. Now, on the far left are the ranked best practice scenarios based on the ones that the software has determined give you the best return on investment in order to make your improvements. Now, that column called criticality is actually this is actually part of our internal algorithm that is going to determine basically the priority of the weight of improving on this particular best practice as far as determining what the best return on investment is going to be. You'll see that the very first entry is the company completes periodic training for employees on key compliance-related issues such as conflict of interest, data and information privacy, and sexual harassment. Criticality is desirable. Adoption level, this is something that you enter during the discovery phase, is none. The desired adoption level is best of class. So basically, as the calculation is done, this actually becomes the area where you can get the best return on investment for making process improvements. Also, you'll notice on this screen that there's a space where you can actually enter your own comments about what it is that you want to do. By the way, ValueSoft in just a few seconds identified 22 best practice improvement areas associated with enterprise risk management for this demo company. Now again, think about the difference between doing this with one click of a mouse button and spending months of doing research in order to develop this kind of report. On one screen, you see very clearly the areas where you can make process improvement investments, and you know exactly what it is that you're going to be doing and why it's important. Think about the difference in how you make your financial decisions. Processes. You're going to want to enter information about your project profile. One of the things that you're really going to want to do is to make projections around critical, KPIs. You're going to want to have information about your project financials. And you're going to want to look at KPIs on both a project and organizational level. Again, when you enter the information at this point, you're looking at projected estimates. It's later that you're actually going to go back in and look at what the actuals are. But the important thing is that the ValueSoft software has places where that you can record this information so that you can use it for effective reporting. Now, after you've looked at the areas where you can make improvements, you're of course going to want to decide on, we're actually going to make an improvement. Again, you can take a look at your options for doing this. The first option is that mostly it's through emails and spreadsheets and various other places that you collect information about what it is that you're trying to making decisions about how you're going to make improvements in areas. This tends to be ad hoc information. Someone sent an email to someone else. You're trying to remember who's responsible for a particular project. This is the traditional way of doing things. But using the ValueSoft analytic tools, you can actually store information about the improvement projects that you're making within the ValueSoft application. This becomes incredibly important if you're looking at several improvement areas. Because again, remember, we only looked at the order to cash process. We did not look at the improvements associated with all of the other financial areas. In all likelihood, you're going to have several selections of things to improve that are going to be important for you. But also you'll have to decide how many of these things you want to do at one time. Typically, you will stage these in order to manage the effort that you're going to use for improvement. This means that you may have identified areas for improvement this month, this week, but you may not actually begin to work on those for 6 to 9 months or a year later. ValueSoft gives you the opportunity to actually collect information about those opportunities in one place so that you don't lose that information as you come back to it 6 months, perhaps a year later. Let's take a look at what this actually looks like. There are 2 areas that are going to be important for you. Let's take a look at the bottom of this screen first. This is where we're actually going to collect information about the business case. Now, the importance of the way that this is segmented is that in most organizations, it's not going to be one person who's working on a business case, but actually a collection of people. This allows you to segment the business case so that you can keep track, and actual individuals can go in and do entries for different areas of the business case. Now, the big question for organizations is, after you've made an improvement effort, did you get the results that you aimed for? This is the post-implementation phase. ValueSoft, again, has places where you can actually record your actual financial values. These are going to be the same tools that you use for your estimates, and you're going to use these actually for documenting your actuals. You're going to be documenting and analyzing project and organizational level KPIs. You're also going to be looking to see if you've actually achieved what it is that you set out to do. It could be that you haven't completely achieved all of the actuals that you wanted. There may be other factors that have prevented you from achieving the results you wanted. At this point, you can now go back to all of the entries that you've made in the past, all of the information about potential other projects, and take a look and see which of these are the next thing that we need to be doing in order to receive our full potential from this implementation. The advantage of the ValueSoft software is that all of this information is in one place.
This concludes our presentation for today. Now let's talk about next steps. If you have not yet registered for a ValueSoft account, please go to our website at www.myvaluesoft.com and create a free account. Once you are registered, you can begin to enjoy the following support resources. Access the ValueSoft User Guide. Post questions on the ValueSoft User Forum. Attend any of our live deep dive sessions. Finally, you may also contact our customer service unit for support.